Failure is a clear and honest teacher. It arrives with the brutal and unambiguous verdict of the ticker tape, and it forces a man to confront his own ignorance, his own weakness, or his own lack of discipline. A great loss is a painful but powerful education in the realities of the market. A great success, however, is a subtle and charming poison. It is the most dangerous intoxicant on Wall Street. It whispers in a man's ear that he is a genius, that he has solved the puzzle, that the market is a simple instrument upon which he can play any tune he wishes. It is in the warm, triumphant glow of a great victory that a speculator's worst and most fatal mistakes are almost always born. This is the great recurring tragedy in the life of any speculator who achieves a monumental success. Jesse Livermore, perhaps more than any man in history, was a living testament to this grim cycle. His greatest and most catastrophic downfalls did not come when he was struggling, but when he was at the very pinnacle of his power, after his most legendary triumphs. His story is a profound and timeless cautionary tale about the seduction of success. It is a clinical analysis of the psychological traps that are sprung not by defeat, but by victory. It reveals how the very emotions that accompany a great win, the surge of confidence, the feeling of infallibility, the hunger for an even greater prize, are the ones that relax a man's discipline and push him toward the abyss of a new and even more devastating ruin. This entire philosophy, this deep understanding of the psychological pressures that a great success creates, is a central and recurring theme in the one indispensable text on the mind of a master speculator. The story of Livermore's triumphs and his subsequent self-inflicted defeats is chronicled with brilliant clarity by Edwin Lefebvre. A link to his essential work, Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, now with a unique, detailed, chapter-by-chapter analysis from Max Davidson, is left in the description below this video. This new analysis is specially designed to make the timeless wisdom of the book powerfully relevant to the modern reader. To understand this phenomenon, one must first dissect the psychological state of a speculator in the immediate aftermath of a great and successful campaign. He has correctly anticipated a major market move. He has backed his judgment with his capital, and he has emerged with a fortune. He is, for that moment, a king. He has not merely been lucky. He has been right, in a way that has been publicly and financially validated. The world looks upon him as a genius and, what is far more dangerous, he begins to look upon himself in the same way. He experiences a state of profound mental intoxication. The powerful and addictive emotions of triumph and validation flood his mind. He feels that he has not just analyzed and profited from the market. He feels that he has, in some fundamental way, conquered it. This feeling of infallibility is the first and most dangerous symptom of the disease of success. The man begins to believe that the laws of the market, the laws of risk and probability that govern all other men, no longer apply to him. He has ascended to a higher plane of understanding. The first casualty of this new state of mind is the speculator's most essential and protective quality, his humility. The true professional, even at the height of his powers, maintains a deep and abiding humility before the market. He knows that he is a student, and the market is his teacher. He knows that his success was a product not just of his own skill, but of being in harmony with the great, impersonal force of the prevailing trend. He is grateful for his success, but he does not take all the credit for it. The man who has been seduced by his own victory, however, loses this perspective. He begins to believe that the market's trend was not a course to be correctly diagnosed and followed, but a force that he, through his own genius, somehow managed. The student begins to see himself as the master. This subtle but profound shift in mindset is the beginning of the end. For the moment, the man stops listening to the market and begins to listen only to the sound of his own applause. Is the moment he connects great failure from certainty. The second symptom that follows is the quiet and then blatant abandonment of his own time-tested tools. The entire science of speculation is built upon a foundation of rigid, inviolable rules of risk management. These rules are forged in the fire of losses, and they are designed to protect the speculator from his own human weakness. Rules for infallible man who respects the market's power to inflict ruin. But the speculator who now feels infallible begins to see these rules as a set of crutches that he no longer needs. They are for the amateurs, for the novices, for the man who used to be. He is a genius now, and a genius can trade on inspiration alone. He begins to take larger positions than his own scientific formula would dictate. He is no longer risking a small, calculated fraction of his capital. He is making massive bets, confident that his judgment cannot be wrong. He becomes lax with his stop-losses. He holds on to a small loss, believing his genius will be vindicated and the trade will turn around. He begins to make exceptions to his own ironclad laws, telling himself that this time is different. He has forgotten the most crucial lesson of all, that on Wall Street, the moment a man believes that this time is different, he has already paid for the expensive lesson that will soon teach him it is not. The third symptom of this disease of success is a change in a man's fundamental desire. The desire that drove his successful campaign was a definite and specific one, to profit from a single, well-analyzed market move. Now, with a great fortune in his pocket, a new and more dangerous desire takes its place. It is the insatiable hunger for more. A great profit does not satisfy a man. It often only whets his appetite for an even greater one. The desire to make $1 million is instantly replaced by the desire to make 10 million. This new desire is not a calculated, strategic one. It is a raw, emotional, and greedy one. The speculator is no longer content to be a patient hunter, waiting for the next perfect opportunity to present itself. He now feels the need to force the action, to make something happen, to keep the game going at all costs. He begins to see potential trades where none exist. He mistakes the minor, meaningless fluctuations of the market for the beginnings of a new great swing. His judgment is clouded by his own insatiable greed. He has forgotten that the great, profitable moves are rare. They are the exception, not the rule. He begins to treat the market like a personal ATM, believing he can withdraw a fortune from it whenever he pleases. The market will soon disabuse him of this notion. This entire tragic cycle was perfectly illustrated in Livermore's own career after his monumental success in the panic of 1907. He emerged from that crash a legend, the great bear of Wall Street, a multimillionaire who had proven his genius to the entire world. He was at the absolute peak of his powers and his confidence, and it was this very confidence, this hubris, that led him directly and swiftly to his next great ruin in the cotton market. He felt the need to conquer a new world, to prove that his genius was not confined to the stock market. He would become the cotton king. He began to build a position in cotton that was, by any rational standard, recklessly and dangerously large. He was no longer a speculator, carefully probing the market and managing his risk. He was a would-be emperor, attempting to corner a global commodity market through the sheer force of his own capital and his own will. He was not trading the market, he was trying to be the market. This brings us to another subtle and dangerous trap that is set by great success. A man of great fortune and great fame attracts the attention of other powerful men. He is invited into the inner circles, into the boardrooms and the private clubs. He is no longer a lone wolf, but a member of a prestigious pack. This can be a fatal development for a speculator. His great strength has always been his intellectual independence, his reliance on his own unfiltered reading of the tape. But now, his mind is exposed to the persuasive and authoritative opinions of other great men. This is precisely what happened to Livermore in the cotton market. He was seduced by the charismatic and powerful personality of the cotton expert, Percy Thomas. He allowed his own judgment to be subordinated to the grand vision of his new influential friend. The successful speculator begins to believe in the myth of his own genius, and this makes him uniquely vulnerable to the flattery and the grandiloquent plans of others who seem to be of his own stature. He has forgotten that on Wall Street there are no friends, only interests. The final and most insidious symptom of the seduction of success is a subtle perversion of the desire to win it back. This is not the familiar desire of a loser trying to recoup a loss. This is the desire of a winner who, after a long and triumphant advance, suffers a small, normal setback and reacts to it with a sense of personal affront. The speculator has built a massive position. The market has a natural, healthy reaction, and his enormous paper profit shrinks by a few percent. The amateur who has been humbled by failure might see this as a warning, a signal to take some profits off the table. But the man who has been intoxicated by his own success sees it differently. He feels that the market has stolen a piece of his new and glorious fortune. His ego is wounded. He is not driven by fear, but by a prideful and aggressive desire to not just win back that small lost ground, but to punish the market for its impertinence by winning even more. This is the psychological trigger for the most fatal of all mistakes. It is what causes a man to hold on through a normal reaction that is turning into a major reversal. It is what causes him to average down his winning position, a subtle but deadly error. It is the pride that comes before the fall. It is in these moments of dealing with the psychological pressures of a winning position that a speculator's character is most severely tested. The emotions after a great victory are, in many ways, far more dangerous than the emotions after a defeat. It is for this reason that a constant return to the first fundamental principles of the game is not a luxury for a speculator, but an absolute necessity for his survival. A return to this channel, to this video and others, especially in the euphoric aftermath of a successful trade, serves as a vital, cold water shock, a recalibration of the mind to the professional state of eternal vigilance. The inevitable consequence of all these symptoms, the loss of humility, the abandonment of rules, the insatiable greed, and the prideful refusal to accept a small setback, is the great and tragic unraveling. The speculator, having made himself vulnerable through his own success, is now perfectly positioned for his next great ruin. He is over-leveraged, his position is too large, his mind is clouded by ego, and his discipline has been relaxed. He is a giant with feet of clay. The market does not need to do anything extraordinary to destroy him. All that is required is for it to do what it always does, to fluctuate, to have a normal, healthy, and entirely predictable major reaction. But for the speculator who is now in this weakened and overextended state, this normal reaction is a catastrophic event. It triggers a margin call. It forces him to liquidate his massive position into a declining market, which accelerates the decline. The fall is always faster, more brutal, and more shocking than the long, slow climb. The fortune that took a year of brilliant speculation to build can be wiped out in a matter of days or weeks of undisciplined emotional trading. This then is the first part of the great lesson on the seduction of success. It is the diagnosis of the disease. It is the enactment of how a great victory can become the direct and softening force of great defeat. Success is a more dangerous intoxicant than failure. Failure is a bitter tonic that teaches caution and humility. Success is a sweet poison that breeds arrogance, recklessness, and a fatal sense of infallibility. The emotional traps that are sprung by a great and triumphant win are the true and final enemies of the speculator. They are more dangerous than any bear raid or market panic, for they are an enemy that comes from within. The man who wishes to achieve a long and sustained career in the great game of speculation must learn not only how to make a great deal of money, he must learn the far more difficult and more important art of how to handle the psychological aftermath of having made it. If the seduction of a great success is the most subtle and dangerous poison on Wall Street, then the only antidote is a cold, hard, and deliberate dose of intellectual discipline. The speculator who has been fortunate enough to win a great campaign is now faced with his most difficult test. The market is no longer his primary adversary. The new enemy is his own triumphant and therefore dangerously unreliable mind. The professional understands this. He knows that the moment of his greatest victory is also the moment of his greatest vulnerability. He must, therefore, engage in a conscious and systematic process of self-control. a series of mental and practical actions designed to protect him from the intoxicating effects of his own success. This is the science of handling a fortune. This is not a matter of guesswork or of hoping for the best. It is a definite method, a set of principles as rigid and as necessary as the rules that guided his trading during the campaign itself. To abandon these principles at the moment of victory is to guarantee that the victory will be a temporary one. Let us, then, dissect this method. Let us examine the specific, practical, and psychological steps that a master speculator must take in the immediate aftermath of a great and profitable move. This is the art of not just making a fortune, but of keeping it. The first and most critical act that a wise speculator performs after closing out a major winning position is not to indulge in lavish celebration, but to conduct a cold and unemotional audit of the entire campaign. He must become a ruthless historian of his own success. He will take out his trading records, and he will study them with the same intensity with which he once studied the tape. He will ask a series of hard questions. What precisely did he do right? Was his timing at the pivotal point perfect, or was he a little early or late? Was his pyramiding strategy sound, or did he become too top-heavy at the end? He must also, with brutal honesty, analyze the role that luck played in his success. Was there a fortunate news event that accelerated his profits? Did he benefit from a market that was even stronger than he had anticipated? He must separate the results of his skill from the results of pure, dumb luck. This process of a post-victory audit is an act of profound and necessary humility. It is a deliberate exercise designed to counteract the ego-inflating effects of the win. It reinforces the critical understanding that his success was the result of following a sound method, not the result of some mystical inborn genius. The second act is the conscious and deliberate preservation of that humility. The speculator must constantly remind himself that the market is always the master, and he is and always will be its humble student. His great success was not a sign that he has conquered the market, but merely a sign that during that one campaign he was a very good and attentive student. To achieve this, he must engage in a form of mental counterbalancing. He must, in the midst of his great success, deliberately recall the memory of his past, painful failures. He must remember the times when he was wrong, when his judgment was flawed, when the market humbled him completely. He must study the history of the market and the lives of other great speculators, paying particular attention to the stories of their downfalls. He must see in the failures of others a cautionary tale for himself. This is not a morbid exercise, it is an act of profound realism. This practice keeps his mind grounded. It prevents the temporary feeling of infallibility from hardening into a permanent and dangerous state of arrogance. He knows that the market is always waiting to humble the man who has forgotten his place in the great scheme of things. The third act, which flows directly from the first two, is the immediate and fervent reinforcement of his own trading rules. The amateur, flush with victory, believes he has transcended the need for rules. The professional knows that this is the moment when the rules are more important than ever. The speculator who has just won a great fortune must, at that very moment, take out his written list of principles, his rules for risk management, for position sizing, for entries and exits, and he must read them as if for the first time. He must make a new and solemn vow to himself that he will adhere to these rules on his very next trade with the same rigid discipline he used when he was starting out with a small and precious stake. He must commit to treating his next opportunity as if it were his first. This is a powerful act of mental discipline. It is a recognition that the principles of sound speculation are universal and unchanging. They apply to the man with $10 million just as they apply to the man with 10,000. To believe oneself exempt from these laws is the very definition of a fool. The fourth act is a practical one concerning the management of the new, larger capital base. A great profit brings with it a great new responsibility. The speculator's capital has now grown, and he must adjust his thinking accordingly. The amateur, having turned $10,000 into $100,000, may see this new fortune as house money. He may feel that it is money he can afford to be reckless with. to gamble on a long shot. This is a fatal error in thinking. The professional understands that there is no such thing as house money. It is all his capital. The new, larger fortune must be treated with even more reverence and respect than the original smaller stone. For it is the fruit of a successful campaign, and it is the ammunition for all his future operations. He must adjust his risk calculations accordingly. He must understand that a 10% loss on $1 million position is a far more serious and psychologically damaging event than a 10% loss on a $10,000 position. The stakes are now higher, and his caution must be greater. His position size must be recalibrated to his new capital level, but the underlying principles of risking only a small fraction of his total worth on any single idea must be maintained with even greater rigor. The larger the fortune, the more conservative the mind must become with its money. The fifth, and perhaps most important practical act after a long and grueling campaign, is strategic withdrawal. The wise speculator, having closed out his great position and converted his stable profits into cold hard cash, does not immediately look to the next phase. He does the opposite. He gets up from the desk and he walks away from the gaming tower. He takes a vacation. He goes fishing. He travels. He does anything and everything that is completely unrelated to the stock market. He forces himself into a period of quiet, restorable inactivity. The purpose of this is to allow the mental and emotional intoxication of the great victory to fade. The human nervous system is not designed to exist in a permanent state of high stakes, high adrenaline excitement. It must be given time to rest, to clear, and to return to a state of calm, objective normalcy. To remain in the market in the immediate aftermath of a great win is to guarantee a reckless, emotional, and almost certainly losing trade. The speculator is, in that state, not operating with his intellect, but with his overinflated ego. He must wait for his head to clear. This strategic withdrawal is an act of profound self-knowledge. It is a recognition that a man's own triumphant emotions are, at that moment, his greatest and most dangerous enemy. The sixth act occurs when the speculator, his mind now clear and his nerves settled, finally decides to return to the market. He does not return with a great and dramatic flourish, with a massive bet designed to prove that his genius is still intact. His very first trade, even as a multi-millionaire, must be the same as it was when he was a novice with a tiny stake. It must be a small, cautious, and exploratory probe. This is the ultimate test of his discipline, the final proof that he has not been permanently corrupted by his own success. It is an act of profound humility. He is once again a humble student, asking the market a quiet question, not a master shouting a command. He waits for the market to give him a clear signal at a pivotal point. He makes his small test trade. He waits for the market to confirm his judgment with a profit. He is following the same methodical scientific process that he has always followed. He has returned to the fundamentals. By starting small again, he re-engages with the market from a position of mental and financial safety. If his first few trades back are small losses, they are of no consequence to his great fortune. They are simply the market's way of telling him that the time is not yet right. The seventh act of discipline is the resistance to the temptation of new and unfamiliar fields. A man who has achieved a great success in the stock market often begins to believe that his genius is universal. He is seduced by the idea that he can apply his Midas touch to other, more glamorous ventures. He will be tempted to take his speculative winnings and invest them in real estate, in venture capital, in oil exploration, or in the manufacturing of a new invention. This is a classic and often fatal error. The principles of success in one field do not automatically translate to another. The world is filled with the stories of brilliant stock speculators who lost their entire fortunes by venturing into businesses that they did not understand. The professional, having won the game he has mastered, has the wisdom to stick to that game. He knows where his expertise lies. He does not allow his ego to convince him that he is a universal genius. He respects the specialized knowledge that is required for success in any field. The eighth act is the battle against the great and terrible enemy that often follows a major success: boredom. The thrill of the great campaign is over. The market itself may enter a dull, listless, sideways period where no clear opportunities exist. The undisciplined speculator, now a man of great wealth and with a mind that is addicted to excitement, finds this state of quietude to be unbearable. He craves the old thrill, and so he will begin to force the action. He will make foolish trades in a dead market, not for the profit, but for the gamble, for the simple desire to feel something. He will invent opportunities where none exist. This is the path back to ruin, a slow bleed of capital caused by a lack of emotional control. The professional, by contrast, accepts the periods of dullness as a necessary and even welcome part of the market cycle. He has the discipline to sit patiently in cash, to read, to study, to rest his mind, and to wait. He knows that he is not paid to be entertained. He is paid to be right. And being right often requires long periods of doing nothing at all. This brings us to the final and most profound understanding. The true victory of a speculator is not the accumulation of the great fortune. That is merely the scoreboard. The true victory is the ability to keep that fortune not just financially but psychologically. It is the ability to handle a great and triumphant success without being inwardly destroyed by it. It is the victory of character over ego. It is the triumph of discipline over emotion. It is the quiet and often lonely work of remaining a humble student in the face of a world that is calling you a master. The speculator who has learned how to do this, who has created a definite method for managing not just his capital but also his own triumphant human nature, is the one who has achieved the highest and most difficult level of the game. He has conquered not just the market, but the far more treacherous and unpredictable landscape of his own mind. He has learned that failure is a teacher, but that success is a test, and it is by far the harder one to pass.